A red dirt track runs dead straight into saltbush, a rusted iron post leans against a wire fence, and an aluminium road sign catches the afternoon glare. To someone standing on this shoulder, it is simply empty grazing country along an unmarked line. Then the surveyor's ledger opens. Across thousands of kilometres of this continent, official borders sit in the wrong place. Anomalies run through cadastral grids, and administrative boundaries fail to match the terrain beneath them. What is remarkable is not that these lines were drawn across vast distances, but that major cartographic errors sat uncorrected in official statute books for generations, noted in field journals, and quietly ignored. Why did colonial governments leave known mapping discrepancies running through the landscape for over a century? From an uncorrected meridian shift in the west to a capital border legally cutting through living rooms in the east, Australian boundaries hold 50 documented cartographic failures. Number 50. The South Australia and Western Australia border on the Nullarbor Plain. Defined by imperial statute as the 129th meridian of east longitude, government astronomers attempting to mark the line near Deakin in 1921 used wireless time signals and found the original colonial survey pillars stood hundreds of metres away from the true astronomical meridian. Rather than realigning thousands of square kilometres of pastoral leases, authorities constructed a secondary survey line, leaving a permanent double border across the limestone plain. Number 49. The South Australia and Victoria border dispute. In 1847, surveyor Henry Wade marked the 141st meridian north from the coast, and Edward White completed the line to the Murray in 1850. Subsequent astronomical observations revealed the marked line lay roughly 3 kilometres west of the true meridian. Victoria refused to surrender the disputed strip of over 1,200 square kilometres, sparking litigation that reached the High Court in 1911 and the Privy Council in 1914. Number 48. Cameron Corner, where New South Wales, Queensland and South Australia meet at latitude 29 degrees south and longitude 141 degrees east. In 1880, surveyor John Brewer Cameron chained the line through dunes and salt lakes. His wooden post in the shifting red sand anchored 3 distinct state legal codes at a single dingo-proof fence. Number 47. The Jervis Bay Territory Excision. When the 1900 Constitution established the framework for a federal capital, New South Wales surrendered land for the seat of government, but federal parliament insisted on ocean access. Under the Seat of Government Surrender Act of 1915, the Commonwealth acquired 28 square miles at Jervis Bay, creating an isolated coastal enclave administered under ACT law over 140 kilometres from Canberra. Number 46. McCabe Corner on the Murray River. Positioned where the New South Wales, Victorian and South Australian borders intersect, this point marks where the Murray enters South Australian territory. Named after surveyor Francis McCabe, the boundary point shifts dynamically with the river channel, creating an oscillating tripartite border governed by 19th-century water pacts. Number 45. The border between New South Wales and Victoria along the southern bank of the Murray. The Imperial Act of 1855 set the boundary at the water's edge on the southern bank rather than the river's centre. Victoria held no legal jurisdiction over the water surface flowing past its own river towns, leaving every wharf, footing and moored paddle steamer technically within New South Wales. Number 44. The Black Allen Line between New South Wales and Victoria. Surveyed between 1870 and 1872 by Alexander Black and Alexander Allen, this straight line runs 177 kilometres from Cape Howe to the Murray source at Forest Hill. Modern satellite audits show their manual timber-cleared transit line through rugged alpine peaks deviated by only a few metres. Number 43. Pepple Corner in the Simpson Desert. Surveyor Augustus Pepple marked the junction of Queensland, South Australia and the Northern Territory in 1880 using a Coolabah post. A subsequent audit discovered his survey chain was stretched by an inch, throwing the marker 300 metres out of place until Larry Wells corrected it in 1884. Number 42. The Tweed Heads and Coolangatta Town Line. The state border between New South Wales and Queensland cuts directly along Boundary Street, splitting an urban community. Because Queensland does not observe daylight saving time while New South Wales does, the street operates on 2 official times every summer, dividing businesses and emergency services across a single roadway. Number 41. The 80-mile beach boundary terminus. The western boundary of the Kimberley Pastoral Division meets the Indian Ocean along an arbitrary meridian defined during the 19th-century pearling boom. Terminating in open intertidal mudflats where the tide recedes over a kilometre, the administrative legal boundary oscillates twice daily with the waterline. Number 40. The South Australia and New South Wales border along the 141st meridian. Pegged northward from the Murray in the mid-19th century, 20th century retriangulation showed the surveyed fence line sat roughly 130 metres west of the actual astronomical meridian. Formalised by statute in 1911 despite the known error, it left a permanent offset between geodesy and land titles. Number 39. The northern boundary of the Australian Capital Territory across the Brindabella Range. Charles Scrivener surveyed the Federal Territory in 1910, along catchment divides rather than straight lines. In several saddle valleys, the official watershed charted on colonial maps diverged from the true geological drainage by dozens of metres, creating dual maintenance claims. Number 38. The Western Australia and Northern Territory border pillar at the 20th parallel. When surveyed during the 1930s, astronomers calculated latitude from stellar occultation, struggling to compensate for the deflection of the vertical caused by the dense underlying crust of the Tanami Desert. Satellite geodesy by Geoscience Australia confirmed gravitational anomalies pulled plumb bobs off vertical, introducing a systematic curve into the legislated meridian. Number 37. The disputed country of the Otway Basin. The offshore border between Victoria and Tasmania descends into Bass Strait along latitude 39 degrees 12 minutes south. Because colonial charters granted adjacent islands to Tasmania while leaving the mainland coastline to Victoria, oil and gas exploration in the 1960s required artificial revenue baselines to resolve 19th-century ambiguities over low-tide reefs. Number 36. Haddon Corner at latitude 26 degrees south and longitude 141 degrees east. Augustus Pepple established this junction between South Australia and Queensland in 1879. Extreme temperature swings expanded his steel tapes beyond standard calibration, shifting the true corner point by several metres into the Gibber Plains. Number 35. The Woomera Prohibited Area across the Gawler Craton. Gazetted in 1947, this administrative perimeter covers over 122,000 square kilometres of arid South Australia. Drawn across country held by Kokatha and Maralinga Tjarutja peoples, the boundary was marked as straight geometric coordinates cutting through dunes and salt lakes, creating an exclusion zone larger than many European nations. Number 34. The boundary realignment at Point Danger. When colonial surveyors established the New South Wales and Queensland border in 1863, they anchored the line at the McPherson Range and projected it east to the high water mark. Because coastal erosion continually reshapes the littoral spit, the terminus was anchored to a concrete monument on the headland to prevent the border migrating with coastal sand drift. Number 33. The 26th parallel dividing the Northern Territory from South Australia. When South Australia transferred the Northern Territory to the Commonwealth in 1911, this internal division became a hard federal boundary. Surveyors marking the line through Simpson Desert dunes placed timber posts that were repeatedly buried and exposed by moving drift, forcing field teams to locate markers by dead reckoning. Number 32. The ACT border corridor along the Molonglo and Queanbeyan catchments. The eastern border of the Federal Territory was surveyed to secure Canberra's water supply along high ridge contours above Queanbeyan. The resulting line zigzags tightly through steep valleys, trapping narrow slivers of state land between the federal perimeter and railway easements. Number 31. The western terminus of the Victoria-New South Wales border at the 34th parallel. When the Murray River shifted course during the 1870 floods, oxbow billabongs were cut off from the main channel. Under the 1855 Imperial Act, the state boundary remained anchored to the historical southern water's edge, creating pockets of New South Wales land stranded on the Victorian side of the flowing stream. Yet as ground surveyors struggled through scrub and sand to trace these 19th-century meridians, what invisible forces beneath the ancient crust were quietly warping their calculations from below? Number 30. The Australian Tectonic Plate Coordinate Drift. Geoscience Australia monitors continent-wide geodetic stations, measuring the plate moving northeast by 7 centimetres annually. Because satellite navigation relies on fixed Earth-centered coordinates, this drift created an offset with digital mapping. In 2017, the geocentric datum of Australia was updated to GDA 2020, shifting the national coordinate grid by 1.8 metres. Number 29. The Sandy Island Phantom feature in the Coral Sea. Recorded by the whaling ship Velocity in 1876 and charted by the British Admiralty in 1908, this landmass sat on world maps for over a century. In 2012, scientists aboard the research vessel Southern Surveyor sailed into the charted coordinates and recorded water depths exceeding 1,400 metres, proving the charted island was an error caused by floating volcanic pumice. Number 28. The submerged Sahul Shelf at Cape Bruguières in the Dampier Archipelago. In 2020, Flinders University archaeologists mapped 269 stone artifacts preserved 2.4 meters beneath the ocean surface. Radiocarbon dating and sea level models confirmed the site was occupied before marine transgression drowned the continental shelf 7,000 years ago. Number 27. The buried Tukanuka impact structure beneath southwest Queensland's Eromanga Basin. Invisible on the surface, petroleum exploration in the 1980s detected shocked quartz crystals and shatter cones at depths past 1,000 meters, proving a 50-kilometer-wide meteorite impact crater formed during the early Cretaceous. Number 26. The Lake Acraman impact ejecta layer in the Gawler Ranges. Geologists mapping a 30-kilometer depression in 1985 found confirmation 300 kilometers away in the Flinders Ranges, where stratigraphic sampling uncovered shocked minerals and iridium spikes linking the salt playa to a meteorite strike 580 million years ago. Number 25. The Garryward Ridgeline survey offsets in Western Victoria. Colonial cartographers using plane table surveying in the 1860s attempted to trace the sandstone questas of the Grampians. In 2018, airborne lidar penetrated the eucalypt canopy, revealing historical parish boundaries had been charted along false valley floors rather than true geological escarpments, misplacing titles by 90 meters. Number 24. The Olympic Dam geophysical anomaly on the Stuart Shelf. In 1975, Western Mining Corporation geologists targeted coincident gravity and magnetic anomalies buried under 350 meters of sediment. Drill core RD1 struck high-grade copper and uranium breccia, proving major ore bodies could be pinpointed entirely through subsurface geophysics. Number 23. The Australian height datum distortion across the eastern seaboard. Established in 1971 using mean sea level from 30 tide gauges, subsequent high-precision leveling revealed ocean currents introduced a north-south tilt of roughly 1 meter into the datum, meaning zero elevation at Cairns is physically higher than zero elevation at Hobart. Number 22. The Mount Weld carbonatite pipe in Western Australia. Located 35 kilometers southeast of Laverton beneath thick weathered regolith, aeromagnetic surveys identified an intense circular anomaly 3 kilometers across. Drilling recovered an ancient volcanic neck containing one of the world's richest deposits of rare earth elements. Number 21. The Meckering fault scarp in the Western Australian wheatbelt. In October 1968, a magnitude 6.5 earthquake ruptured the Archean Yilgarn Craton, tearing a 32-kilometer scarp across farmland and offsetting roads, fences, and railways by up to 2 meters vertically, forcing the resurvey of entire rural parishes. How did these deep geological shifts and historical survey anomalies reshape modern property laws, infrastructure corridors, and everyday boundaries in the communities built directly upon them? Number 20. The Great Artesian Basin Recharge Boundary across Queensland and New South Wales. Covering 1.7 million square kilometres, over 31,000 pastoral bores have pierced the confining beds since 1878. Uncontrolled discharge dropped hydraulic pressure by 80 metres in the Coonamble embayment, prompting state authorities to cap bores and replace open earth drains with enclosed pipelines. Number 19. The degazetted town grid of Wittenoom in the Pilbara. Settled in the 1930s to mine crucidolite blue asbestos, over 3 million tonnes of toxic tailings were spread across local roads and schoolyards. In 2006, Western Australia degazetted the town and removed it from official maps, culminating in the Wittenoom Closure Act. Number 18. The submerged township of Old Adaminaby in the Snowy Mountains. Flooded in 1957 by Lake Yucumbene for the Snowy Scheme, 700 residents were relocated. When severe drought dropped reservoir capacity below 10% in 2007, stone foundations, curbs, and the original main street resurfaced intact from the lakebed. Number 17. The surveyed town alignments beneath Lake Jindabyne. Flooded in 1967, the original Jindabyne township sits beneath 30 meters of water. Sonar surveys and remote underwater vehicles routinely map intact church foundations, bridge piers, and submerged road grids beneath the active hydro storage. Number 16. The closed testing ranges of Maralinga on the Nullarbor. Between 1956 and 1963, the British government conducted atmospheric nuclear tests across Maralinga Jarutja country. Following extensive soil remediation and vitrification throughout the 1990s, over 3,000 square kilometers were returned in 2014, though an inner zone of 120 square kilometers remains legally restricted. Number 15. The abandoned underground workings beneath Bendigo, Victoria. Gold mining between 1851 and 1954 left over 5,000 vertical shafts and hundreds of kilometers of drives beneath the modern city. Rising groundwater rich in naturally dissolved arsenic fills these voids, requiring active treatment plants to keep toxic water below urban basements. Number 14. The Intraplate Seismic Hazard Zone of Newcastle, New South Wales. Long mapped as a low-risk zone, Newcastle was struck by a magnitude 5.6 earthquake in December 1989 along a blind thrust fault 11 kilometers deep, causing $4 billion in damage and claiming 13 lives. The disaster forced a complete overhaul of national building standards for unreinforced masonry. Number 13. The Newer Volcanics Province at Mount Gambier, South Australia. The volcanic crater lakes of Mount Gambier represent the youngest eruptions on mainland Australia, dated to 4,500 years ago. The Blue Lake crater sits directly within the urban footprint, providing municipal water for 28,000 residents, while sensor arrays monitor regional volcanic resurgence. Number 12. Dryland salinity creep across the Western Australian wheatbelt. Clearing native mallee vegetation for agriculture allowed saline groundwater tables to rise by up to 30 centimeters annually. Over 1 million hectares of productive land have turned white with salt encrustation, destabilizing road pavements and requiring deep engineering drainage networks. Number 11. The fish mortality reaches of the Lower Darling and Barker River at Menindee. Prolonged extraction and severe drawdown in 2019 and 2023 caused dissolved oxygen levels in the weir pool to collapse, killing millions of native fish along 40 kilometers of river channel. The event spurred continuous sensor telemetry and drone monitoring by the Murray-Darling Basin Authority to direct emergency flows. As these environmental markers, unmapped voids, and shifting borders continue to govern modern living conditions across the continent, which 10 locations hold the most profound cartographic anomalies in Australian history? Number 10. The Coober Pedy Opal Fields on South Australia's Stuart Shelf. Discovered in 1915, the field encompasses 70 digging zones across 45 square kilometers. Because surface heat routinely exceeds 40 degrees Celsius, over 60% of the town's 1,500 residents live in subterranean dugouts cut into Cretaceous bulldog shale, creating an unmapped townscape where residences sit beneath active mining claims. Number 9. The Budgebim Aquaculture System on Gunditj Mara country in southwestern Victoria. Built across the Tirandara lava flow from an eruption 36,000 years ago, this basalt weir and channel network spans 100 square kilometers. European surveyors dismissed the terrain as stony wasteland, overlooking 6 millennia of hydraulic engineering. Following 2020 bushfires, airborne lidar mapped previously unrecorded stone raceways, securing its UNESCO World Heritage boundary. Number 8. The Willandra Lakes Lunette Formations in southwestern New South Wales. When the Pleistocene lakes dried 15,000 years ago, winds formed 30-meter crescent dunes. In 1968 and 1974, erosion exposed the 40,000-year-old ritual burials of Mungo Lady and Mungo Man, revolutionizing timelines of human presence and forcing the revision of quaternary geological charts. Number 7. Wolf Creek Crater in the Tanami Desert, known to Jaru people as Kandimalal. Recognized from aerial surveys in 1947, this 880-meter-wide impact feature dates to 120,000 years ago. Iron-nickel shale balls confirmed an extraterrestrial origin for a landform previously catalogued as a volcanic sinkhole. Number 6. The Greenbushes pegmatite in southwest Western Australia. First mined for alluvial tin in 1888, deep core drilling by the State Geological Survey revealed a 3-billion-year-old lithium-rich spodumene pegmatite. This single deposit beneath Jarrah Forest now supplies a major share of global hard rock lithium. Number 5. The Naracoorte Caves pitfall deposits in South Australia. Formed in Oligocene-Miocene limestone, these subterranean caverns acted as natural pitfall traps for over 500,000 years. Excavations by the South Australian Museum have unearthed complete fossil skeletons of extinct megafauna, including Thylacoleo carnifex, sealed under sterile silt. Number 4. The Brewarrina fish traps on the Barwon River, known as Byami's Ngunhu by Ngemba people. Extending half a kilometre across the riverbed, this system of dry stone holding pens was engineered to manage fish across changing flows. Colonial maps mark the river as an unimproved channel, overlooking the oldest continuous stone construction on the continent. Number 3. The banded iron formations of the Hamersley Basin in the Pilbara. Deposited 2.5 billion years ago when cyanobacteria first oxygenated ancient oceans, alternating bands of iron oxide and chert span hundreds of kilometers, laying down the iron reserves that underpin the state's modern export economy. Number 2. The Sahul continental shelf beneath the Arafura and Timor Seas. During the last glacial maximum, 20,000 years ago, sea levels sat 120 metres lower, joining Australia, New Guinea and Tasmania into a continuous landmass. Multibeam sonar bathymetry by the Australian Institute of Marine Science has mapped drowned river valleys and ancient shorelines submerged under international waters. Number 1. The Great Barrier Reef drowned paleochannels. Beneath the modern coral matrix lies a Pleistocene limestone platform cut by ancient river gorges. Drill cores recovered by the Integrated Ocean Drilling Program demonstrate the modern living reef is a thin veneer just 10,000 years old, growing atop fossil reef structures that drowned and reformed across 5 sea level cycles over 400,000 years. What kept these anomalies hidden for generations was not physical isolation, but the colonial assumption that an administrative line drawn on paper was identical to the ancient ground beneath it. Today, deep seismic sounding, satellite geodesy, and airborne lidar continue to reveal faults, channels, and unrecorded landforms faster than official statute books can be revised. The paper map always looks finished, but the continent beneath it is still moving. Which border anomaly or hidden landscape feature in your own state or territory surprised you the most? Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more deep geography investigation.